Mr. Speaker.
Jan Logie.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise to take a short call on this bill, which the Green Party, as has been previously stated by my colleague Marama Davidson, is proud to be opposing. And I'd just like to pick up on some of the points raised by the previous National Speaker, saying that there's no issue about who owns the stock. That's not important. It's about making sure there are roofs over people's heads. And that too bad if there's a profit motive involved, people can still care. Well, actually, these are significant issues that are at the heart of this bill, because on this side of the House, there is an understanding that if there is a profit motive, then there is lost delivery that is going back to that company in terms of profit that could otherwise be put into resource and support for the people in those houses, that could otherwise be put into building more houses, that could go towards our collective good as a country, that is being taken and channeled into the hands of a few. That is at the heart of what this debate is about. We're all for business in its place, but when this country has an absolute crisis over housing affordability and enough housing, then actually we know there is a role for a larger state provision, because the state doesn't need a profit motive. The state, sadly at the moment, obviously Housing New Zealand has kind of been given a profit motive, but that should not be the case. And that the primary Housing New Zealand is our collective property. It's been built up by taxpayers over generations in this country to ensure that every New Zealander has a warm, dry, stable home, not just some piece of shelter over their head that they'd be kicked out of at any moment when policies change or profit motives dictate. About us as a country saying we believe everyone deserves this. And the Green Party knows that our communities are stronger when people are around long enough to put down some roots, and when they're not made sick by cold, damp houses. We've read the research that shows our economy is more productive when people have warm, dry, stable homes. And we know we could take pressure off our health budget if we ensured all New Zealanders the right to warm, dry housing. We also know that children are more likely to succeed at school and in life when they live in warm, dry houses long enough to be able to become part of a school community. And we know we have a housing shortage, and too many people are living in, who are homeless in this country, or are living in unstable housing for a number of reasons. And this bill will not solve any of those things. Transferring the ownership to businesses, or even in some cases when the community housing providers, as this government has made them, are required to apply limited tenure into their housing, then it's not going to, even transferring ownership to them is not going to provide that tenure that is so critically important. So our view is that the housing crisis, more than anything, demands a substantial increase in the number of houses affordable for people on low incomes. And we know that the government has access to low interest loans and has previously had experience on mass house building enterprises, experience that no one else has. Property developers have told us they cannot deliver what is needed in terms of the number of houses. Community housing associations have also told us they do not have the capacity to meet the needs, and many of them are not entering into this process because they don't have the capacity to get the houses up to standard. The one player in this country who does have the experience, the access to the money and the capacity is the state. So here we are, bringing a bill to the House that limits and reduces the state's role in addressing our housing crisis. It is absolute madness. And it gives the minister an
unprecedented amount of power to override Housing New Zealand, to with very little scrutiny negotiate these deals, and will leave whichever minister is in charge of this open to accusations of corruption, because actually their checks and balances aren't in place in the legislation. And that should be worrying everyone in this country. This is an appalling piece of legislation.